One of the things that we do every single Friday night when we get together for Celebrate Recovery is worship together. Why? Why is worship a part of what we do in recovery, and why is it beneficial for us in general? We're excited to talk about it today.
Recovery can be hard, but it's worth it. There is hope knowing we can find healing one step at a time with Jesus and healthy community. Whether you're struggling with a hurt or a hang-up or a habit, you're not alone. During this podcast, we share real stories, practical tools, and powerful truths that inspire you to keep moving forward. No matter where you are on your journey, there's hope ahead. So stick with us as we walk this path together through Celebrate Recovery.
Well, hello, welcome back to Hope in Recovery, a Fellowship Celebrate Recovery podcast where we share life change stories, have recovery conversations that point us towards our one and only true higher power, Jesus, and keep us moving down our road to recovery towards healing and hope. And we're super excited for this conversation today and excited to jump into it. But before we do, just a note, hey, if you're getting something out of this, please, would you mind just subscribing to the channel, liking this on YouTube, and even considering sharing it, giving us a 5-star review. It helps to get the word out. I'm so grateful for those of you that have told us that you're listening to this. It's really encouraging that these conversations that we have are having an impact, and that's the whole point of this. And so thanks for listening. Thanks for being here. Well, let me introduce myself. I am a grateful believer in Jesus. I struggle with anxiety and depression, sexual addiction, and grief. And my name is Andy.
Hey, Andy.
Hey. And I get to serve as the ministry leader for Celebrate Recovery at Fellowship Fayetteville. And today, you just heard his beautiful voice, friend of mine. Would you go ahead and introduce yourself, man?
Yeah, I'm a grateful believer in Jesus. I struggle with sexual addiction, perfectionism, anger, and alcohol. My name's Eldon.
Hey, Eldon.
I get to serve as the worship leader for C.R. Rogers.
Yeah, man. Well, one of the things that we were thinking about when we were kind of thinking through just some of the conversations we wanted to have on this fall, and one of the topics came up about worship. And why is worship something that we do every single week as a part of Celebrate Recovery? And I know that I've definitely had that question posed to me by folks as they're kind of getting into this process and trying to understand what we do. And I thought, man, who would be a great person to have that conversation with? Why not the guy that is helping to lead our worship, our Celebrate Recovery gatherings from a worship standpoint. And so, Eldon's super glad that you're here. Really excited for this conversation, dude. And so, man, let's just start off right at the front end of it. What is worship? What do we mean by that? Because I think there's a couple different definitions, and I think that'll help guide our conversation, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And even preparing for this podcast, I was trying to think through what would be my definition of worship. And I've heard so many different definitions over the years, and I don't know that there's any one definition that can truly pin it down. And so I was just trying to think through what do I think about worship, especially in the context of recovery.
Yeah.
And so I was trying to think through, I know that I've heard it said many times that worship is ascribing worth to God, or showing that God is worthy of our praise, or worthy of our attention or our affection.
Yeah.
And so just thinking about that, and I thought, well, then ascribing worth to God would be a definition of worship, a very simple one. But then I started thinking about all of the other, like the other aspects of it. And so I thought maybe like ascribing worth to God with my attention and my affection. So I thought about that, and I was like, but I can actually have my attention on like woodworking.
Yeah.
But I can still be worshiping if my affection is toward God.
Yeah.
In that physical act. And so anyway, kind of thinking through that, and then eventually what I landed on for me, I think it's justified biblically, but what I landed on was worship is ascribing ultimate worth to God.
Yeah.
In my heart, soul, mind, and body.
Okay. So ascribing ultimate worth to God in my heart, soul, mind, and body. There's a lot packed in there. And, there may be some folks listening to this right now and going, wait, that feels way bigger than just going to church and singing songs before somebody shares a life change story or a teaching. And so you're telling me, Eldon, that worship is more than just singing songs in church.
Absolutely. And I think we've kind of coined it, culturally, we've kind of coined the term worship to mean the music that happens at church.
Yeah.
And that is and can be an act of worship.
Yeah, and it's a part of worship.
It's totally a part of it. And and a lot of times you'll hear like worship service, and so we're gathering together in our large group and we're singing together, and that is an act of worship.
Yeah.
But for that to be an act of worship, for me personally, my heart has to be directed toward God.
Yeah. So worship has more to do with what's going on in our heart, in the posture of our heart, than what we're actually doing.
Absolutely. That's how I see it. I can be doing lots of things. Singing is one of those things I could be doing.
Yeah.
But I could be doing lots of things and that be an act of worship toward God. If I'm ascribing, or if I'm saying, God, you are ultimately worth everything.
Yeah.
Like, you are my ultimate worth. And now whatever I'm doing, scripture says, whether I eat or drink or whatever I do, I'm like, that is worship to God.
Yeah.
If I'm doing it with thankfulness in my heart.
Yeah. Doing it with thankfulness in my heart. Now, I would assume there's also some exclusions to that, though. Like, if I am, kind of willfully acting outside of God's design for me, but I'm like, I'm super thankful that I'm doing this. That's not necessarily worship, right?
Right, absolutely. Because I don't think I would be ascribing, and I'm trying to just like think of for me personally.
Yeah.
I don't think I would be ascribing ultimate worth to God.
Got it.
If I was doing something like
Got
that.
it. Well, and it's good because even as I asked that question, I'm like, I don't know if I even like that question, Andy. Sometimes that happens to me. But because I think the reality is like, and I've heard this before, all of us worship. The thing is who or what are we worshiping? Because true worship is ascribing ultimate worth to God, and that's the key thing, to God.
Right.
And what I act, think, see, do, the qualifiers that you put on there. And I think about that like, since all of us are created in the image of God, all of us were created to worship God. But because all of us are broken, sinful people, because ever since we ate the apple in the garden, this world has been broken, which means the way I worship, that brokenness has infiltrated it. And so I know that's a really big concept. Let me take all of that and boil it down to on the ground. For me, in my sexual addiction, as I was consuming pornography, that was a disordered act of worship, and I was placing ultimate worth in my own sexual gratification, in my own pleasure. in there. That was a key part of what was going on in my own cycle of insanity, was that the ultimate worth in my life was not directed towards God. It was directed towards my own pleasure. And what I realized and lived out is that what I worship is what I pursue. Does that resonate with you?
Absolutely. And that's precisely why I wanted to include body in my definition, ascribing ultimate worth to God in my body too.
Yeah.
And my own sexual addiction is one of the reasons I wanted to include body, because Romans 12:1 tells us to offer our bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. And this is my true and proper worship. And so thinking through that, and it's not just sexual addiction, but it's food issues, drug addiction, alcohol. I've struggled with alcohol, and that is not like over-consuming alcohol. It was abusing my body.
Yeah.
And so I want to offer my body in a way that is worshipful.
Yeah. And that's good. And, we didn't plan on going this direction as we were talking about, but I think it's good that it came up, because I've heard this idea growing up in church, and maybe there's some folks listening to this as well that have maybe heard it preached from the pulpit that, hey, like, sin issues are a worship issue. You're worshiping the wrong thing. And like, I agree with that, but the thing that I want to add to that is that for me, I had to realize that there was really good reasons why I was worshiping things that weren't actually filling me up, things that ultimately weren't worthy of my ultimate worship.
Yeah.
And so what we're not saying is, hey, if you're struggling with anything, it's because you're worshiping the wrong thing. And so if you just worship the right thing, then you're fine. And the reality is like, we are broken people prone to worship the wrong things. That's one of the reasons why God came to this world, to show us, hey, I am the only thing worthy of your worship. Direct your attention, your affection, your life towards me. And by the way, in worshiping me, you live as you were designed. We were created to worship God and glorify Him forever in the way that we live, act, think, feel, do. And when we fall into alignment with that, it actually allows us to live the life God designed us for. And so Celebrate Recovery, it's about us coming back into alignment with God, in relationship with Him. And that relationship is an act of worship. And so I know this is a big kind of ethereal concept, but it's actually so key. And so I don't know if anything jumped out to you in that, or what's percolating in your mind, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I think about how recovery, we always talk about recovery being like a multifaceted, where it's not just coming to large group.
Yeah.
Like that's good and that's helpful.
Yeah.
But then going to open share is another part of our recovery that is so good and so helpful. And going to a step study every week is so good and so helpful. And any one of those things on their own is kind of missing the holistic picture of recovery. And I think about with worship, if all I'm thinking about in worship is singing songs, when we gather together corporately, or even singing by myself, driving down the road or something, if that's the only way that I'm thinking about worship, is I'm connecting to God through singing, and that's it, then I'm missing a big part of it. And that's not to shame anything. It's just to bring awareness to, like, hey, so many things that you love. I was just talking to a guy yesterday morning, and And he was saying, I just feel so terrible when I miss my morning quiet time.
Yeah.
Reading my Bible and journaling and praying. He's like, I just feel awful when I miss that. And I said, what do you love? And he was like having a hard time, thinking about it. And I saw a golf thing on his shirt, and I said, do you still play golf? And he said, yeah, I mean, pretty regularly. And I said, you can meet God on the golf course too.
Yeah.
But it's a matter of turning your attention and your affection toward him in that.
Well, dude, I think I've said this before on the podcast. Part of my story growing up in rural Missouri is, me and my dad went out squirrel hunting all the time. And one of the things that did for me is I love just sitting out in the woods. And I think whenever, and I'm grateful for my dad, because it kind of, me and him spending time out in the woods allowed me to see the beauty and the calm and the peace out in the woods. And now, and I did it just this past weekend, I, went out in the woods and sat, and what it has become for me is, God, thank you for just the beautiful leaves on the trees. You made that, God. You made that so that I could enjoy it. God, thank you. That's worship.
Absolutely.
And, there was a definition of, you mentioned, if you want a new definition of worship, just, read, pick up any book on worship, and all of them are different, but they're all in the same vein. A definition of worship that I have really loved is, it is the appropriate response to what God has done. The appropriate response to what God has done. And so, like, for me, being able to look at creation and go, you did this. Thank you, God. That's an act of worship tied to my gratitude towards what God's done. As I read the Bible and I look at the heart of the gospel where Jesus says, come to me, all you who are weary and burdened. God, thank you that this is who you are and what you've done. That's a big piece of it too, who you are and what you've done. And so much of what we do in recovery is helping us understand who it is that we worship, helping us understand that we don't have the strength to properly worship him the way that he's designed us to, that we all, our lives are unmanageable under our own strength and power. And it's in learning to worship him that it connects us to the source of our strength and power in Jesus to carry on and to live a new life marked by worship of the one who saved us. And so worship is just a massive concept and idea. And yet when we talk about worship, so often we're talking about singing songs, which is a really big part of it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so what we're going to do right now is we're actually going to go to a break. But when we come back, we're going to ask, why do we sing at Celebrate Recovery then? And so I'm excited for it. We'll see you on the other side of the break. Hey, friends. You might be wondering if Celebrate Recovery is for me. One of the things that is pretty common to think is that Celebrate Recovery must only be for people who struggle with drugs or alcohol. But that couldn't be further from the truth. In fact, out of all the people who attend Celebrate Recovery around the world, over 2/3 of them come in for an issue other than drugs or alcohol. Some of the reasons someone might attend Celebrate Recovery are for codependency, anger issues, sexual addiction, being an adult child of family dysfunction, eating disorders, struggling with effects of abuse, or maybe mental health issues. And that's just to name a few. We truly believe that everyone can benefit from Celebrate Recovery. If there's an issue in your life that's holding you back or causing you pain, Celebrate Recovery is for you. Every Friday night, we have Celebrate Recovery meetings at Fellowship Fayetteville and Fellowship Rogers. 6 o'clock, we have a great meal and a time of connection with other brothers and sisters in recovery. And then we have our large group meeting at 7, followed by our open chair groups at 8. It's the same schedule on both campuses, different teachers, different worship teams, but the same great experience. And we would love for you to join us this Friday night. It is never too late to start or start over again. For more information, check us out at fellowshipcr.org. All right, well, we're back. Kind of on the front end before the break. We just feel like we just went way meta level with worship, and you and I are both kind of like nerds in our own right, and I can say that we're friends. And so I think like I love talking about that big idea of it. But I know there's some of us that are, like, man, that was a really big idea. So let's actually take this idea of worship and let's put it on the ground and ask the question, why do we have worship? Why do we sing songs at our Celebrate Recovery Friday night gatherings? Why in the world, if everything is worship, then why do we sing songs at a recovery meeting? What would you say, Eldon?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, we have examples in Scripture over and over and over of people singing songs to God as an act of worship.
Yeah.
Even when they were gathering in the early church, they would sing psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs as part of their gathering. Yeah. And so it's been part of the church worship gathering for millennia, I guess. Yeah. And so it's part of the worship experience.
Yeah. Well, and that's good. And I get that for like a Sunday morning.
Sure.
But I'm walking in on Friday night. I've had a rough week. I'm struggling with family or my own personal struggles. Why are we so intentional to sing worship songs in that context?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, because Celebrate Recovery is a recovery meeting. It's a Christ-centered recovery meeting, which is partly why we're bringing in the worship aspect to it. But yeah, just on a real practical level too, like there have been studies that have shown that singing can, even if you're just doing it by yourself, can reduce your cortisol levels, so stress hormones, and increase your oxytocin or satisfaction hormones, chemicals in your brain. And so just the act of singing can reduce stress and improve your mood. Yeah. And then when you do that together with other people, it amplifies that, and then now we together are having reduced stress, amplified mood, and in fact, I just thought it was really interesting that one study showed that singing together as a like a corporate body, whether it be a choir or something like that, can start to have your heart rates like sync up.
That's neat.
Which I just thought was really interesting, because I just thought about the community aspect of it. And when I'm standing in a room with a bunch of people singing together, like with music, we're all synced up in the same. It's like a bonding experience, kind of. And we always talk about how like the opposite of addiction is connection, and I think music is one of those connectors for us.
I agree. It is interesting. Like, I think that is part of God's design. 'Cause I mean, he created everything. And so like in us singing songs together, it does something to bring us together. And there is something really cool and really powerful on a Friday night to be singing and to look next to me and somebody else is singing the same thing I am. It's a connecting thing. Let's lean into though, like, what are we singing? Like, yeah.
Yeah, that's really important, because one of the things that we're super intentional about at Celebrate Recovery is our song choices. And because the words of the songs that we're singing, they give us a couple of things. I think they teach us biblical truths that we can hang on to, and they give us like a prayer language even. So when I don't know what to pray, because I mean, I think most of us have experienced this where it's like, you know, you're a little kid and you're learning your ABCs and you learn it through a song.
Yeah.
Because like singing is a really good way, like music is a really good way to learn something.
Yeah.
And so when I'm singing a song, I'm learning those lyrics, and like a lot of those lyrics are memorized now. And so now when I'm praying, if I don't know what to pray, a lot of times a song lyric comes to mind.
Yeah.
For example, all my life you've been faithful. All my life you've been so good. And with every breath that I'm able, I will sing of the goodness of God.
I don't want to miss what just happened here. As soon as you started quoting that, man, I'm watching something come alive just in your eyes right there. What did that song lyric just access for you, man?
Yeah, so that song has been really meaningful in my life, my recovery.
Yeah.
Because I came off of a really hard ministry experience.
Yeah.
Where I had to leave a church, and it was messy, and this was pre-recovery, but it's what brought me to recovery.
Oof.
So the final Sunday that I led worship at this church, the very last song I sang was Goodness of God. And in that moment, I did not see God, where God would be faithful.
Yeah.
I was trusting that he would be, but I didn't see it yet.
Yeah.
And so when I say all my life you've been faithful, I can say I didn't know at that point. It was like, are you sure?
Yeah.
Because right now it feels awful.
Man.
And then when I came to celebrate recovery out of that experience, it was so meaningful to like hear that song played over and over and over again, because at different points in my life, I can look back and see all my life you have been faithful, even though I didn't see it in those moments.
Yeah. You know, it's so cool, Eldon. Like you saying that, like the reminder of who God is and what he's done is what we're singing in every song, every single Friday night. And I think about my life, the things that I've gone through, the things that may, you know, some of the things I'm staring down even right now in some stuff. And like sometimes it's really hard to believe those things. But there is something so encouraging and reassuring being able to sit with my forever family, focused on the one that we are united by, which is Jesus. And I've got a brother next to me singing with full conviction a song lyric that is a truth of Jesus that's hard for me to take in. And I'm being encouraged by his trust in it. And it's almost like I don't have the trust right now, or I've got less trust than I want to, but I'm going to borrow some of Eldon's. God, I'm going to trust you because I know my family is trusting you too. And it's kind of a way of like us linking arms and saying we're in this together. I remember this was when I was in college, and I was at a church in the town I went to college in, and it was a Sunday morning, and we were singing a song, and there was some, like I was in the height of a lot of my own cycles of insanity, and they were singing a really familiar song that I knew really well, that I really loved, but I found myself opening my mouth and I couldn't sing the words. But there was a person sitting like 3 or 4 chairs to the left of me. I can still see where I'm sitting in there. And they are singing their heart out. And they're not in tune. They're not on key. They're not even singing it on the right beat with the song. But there was something that happened with me where I saw them singing that and believing that. And I was so encouraged by it. And so even just sitting in the room and watching somebody else worship, watching somebody else respond to who God is and what he's done, drew my heart closer to God that I couldn't have done on my own without that musical connector. And so when we come in on a Friday night and we're in there and we're singing songs and it's a recovery meeting, why are we singing songs? Because it's reminding us who God is and what he's done. It's reminding us who is the one that's leading us on our recovery journey. It's giving us, in the lyrics, little handholds that help us to just climb the next rung of the ladder, to take the next right step. It's these encouragements and fuels for the next part of the process.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I kind of want to lean into this idea of God inhabiting the praises of his people. And so when we sing, like don't miss this. When we sing and when we're praising God, God is in the room with us.
Yeah.
And I don't want us to miss that too, because there is something about worshiping with our forever family and being in the room together and singing these truths and declaring that. And don't miss that God is there too. And our only hope is him.
Yeah.
And so the only way toward healing, the only way toward restoration, toward recovery is through God. And when we sing, when we're praising him together, Scripture says in Psalm 22 that God inhabits the praises of his people. And so the picture that I had in my mind with that is, okay, so when we're in the room, God is there. Well, God is my ultimate hope. So hope is in the room. Healing is in the room. The opportunity for recovery is in the room with us as we're singing. That is a glorious truth. And I don't want us to miss that.
Yeah, that's so cool, Eldon. Oh, man. Well, listening to this, and man, I feel like this is something I feel like both you and I could just talk about for hours and hours and hours, but we're running up against our time here. And so I think in summation, why do we worship on Friday nights? Because when we're stepping into that room, worship gives us a place where we can drop our shoulders, be encouraged, and be reminded of who is the one leading us on the journey. Whether we're able to stand up and declare those truths as we sing from a place of confidence and trust, or whether we're having a hard time trusting it and all we can do is sit there and take it in. We worship because it points us towards the one we worship. And as we worship the one that is worthy of our worship, it helps us to take those reminders into the way that we live. And then as we hear the life change stories, they point us towards the one who's worthy of our worship. As we sit in open share group and as we confess the things that are going on, it reminds us, it brings us back into alignment with the one that we worship. As we listen to brothers and sisters process what's going on in step studies, it helps us to understand how we got to where we're at so that we can walk with the one who's worthy of our worship. And when we walk with the one worthy of our worship, we live in design of the one who designed us to worship him. And the fruit of that is healing and freedom.
Yeah.
And so, Eldon, man, I'd love to just give you the last word on this. Somebody's listening to this and maybe they have a hard time connecting in worship, or maybe they're just having a really rough week, what would you say to them?
Yeah, the one of the pictures that came to mind, I'll keep it brief, but one of the pictures that came to mind was in Scripture, there's this story of this man who is holding up his arms over this army. And when he's holding up his arms, his side of the army is winning. But then he starts to get tired and his arms start to droop. And so he's got these two brothers on either side of him that come and hold his arms up and keep holding them up so that the victory can continue. And I think when if you're feeling tired, if you're feeling worn out, if you're feeling like victory is just not on the table for you right now, just show up. If you come and posture yourself there, just bring yourself to a meeting. There are going to be brothers and sisters that are there that have the strength to hold your arms up, and so that victory can continue.
Yeah, man. And one of the most beautiful expressions of that is us holding each other's arms up as we encourage each other through song.
Yeah.
And I love that, man. Well, hey, man, good conversation today. And just want to say, just like Eldon said, if you're in a rough place right now, if it's been a hard week, if it's been a hard month, if it's been a hard life, and you're looking for change, you're looking for healing, there's a place where you can find hope, where hope is alive in the room, and there's a forever family that are there to walk with you in it. Celebrate Recovery at Fellowship Rogers and Fellowship Fayetteville. They meet every Friday night at 7 o'clock. That's when our time of worship begins. And we would love to see you there. We'd love to walk with you in it as we're walking this journey of hope and healing towards the only one that's worthy of our worship, the only one in whom our hope is found, Jesus Christ. We hope to see you there.